Hello, students. Let's get down to business and create our first scene. The scene will be simple. We'll turn the plane into the ground, and then we'll add some greenery using spheres. Here we go. Delete everything except the camera. Create a plane. Scale it up by a factor of 8. Its size will become 16 by 16. Apply the scale. Rename the plane to ground. To do this, you can select the object you want and press the F2 key. Alternatively, go to the outliner and double-click on the object, or right-click on the object, and in the menu that appears, choose ID Data, Rename. Now, let's go to the Material settings, add a material, and name it Ground, just like the object. Connect the checker texture to the color channel. Change the texture scale to 16. To see the result, switch to Material Preview mode. Now, let's configure the camera. Select it. Reset the rotation and position to 0 using Alt-R and Alt-G. After that, the camera will be teleported to the origin. Pull it up. Go to the Animation tab. In the left window, we have the camera view, and in the right viewport. Let's start by adjusting the camera settings. To do this, you need to select it and go to the camera settings. Change the focal length to 25. Now, let's go to the output settings and change the camera's resolution. We need a square camera with a size of 1080 by 1080. Now, grab the camera by its gizmo and pull it up until you see the entire plane in the left window with a slight margin. If you don't see the gizmo but you really want to, simply activate it in the left panel by clicking on the icon labeled Move tool. And if you want to do without it, you can move the camera using the G key. Press G right after Z to move the camera only along the Z-axis. Move the mouse to the desired height, left-click to confirm the camera's new position. Return to the layout. Around the scene, we'll add some greenery. To do this, create an isosphere. In the right panel, in the Dimensions section, change the size to 1 for all 3 axes. Apply the scale immediately and rename the object. Let's call it Tree. Create a material with the same name. And let's change the color to green. Go to the snapping menu and make sure the increment mode is active. Then, check the absolute grid snap option. Now, when you hold down the Control key, the object will snap its transformation point to the global grid. The snapping accuracy will depend on the grid cell visibility. If you zoom in on the object, the grid will become finer, resulting in higher positioning accuracy. If you move away from the object and try to snap it, there's no guarantee that you can place it in the right spot because the grid is too coarse. Raise the sphere slightly to prevent it from sinking into the ground. For more precise positioning, you can do this by switching to the front view by pressing the number 1 on the numpad. Now, switch to the top view by pressing the number 7 on the numpad or by clicking on the positive Z-axis on the global gizmo. Select the tree, press the G key, and while holding down Ctrl, place the tree in the upper left corner. Left-click to position the tree in the selected spot. Now, for fun, you can add some extra shape to the tree. With its help, we animate the trees in the game. Select the tree. Go to Object Data Properties. Find the Shape Keys section and double-click on the plus. This will create 2 shapes, a basic one and an additional one, which we will now modify. Make sure the second shape key is selected. Let's go to Edit mode. Switch the transformation point to the active element. In this mode, all transformations occur relative to the active element. The active element is the one that is selected last and has a lighter stroke. Now you need to enable proportional editing. Select the lowest point on the sphere. Press S, Z, move the cursor a little to the center to see the changes. Now use the mouse wheel to add or subtract the influence of proportional editing. Our task is to flatten the sphere. Something like that. Let's return to Object Mode. Now we have the ability to smoothly change the shape using the slider. Let's go to the top view. Without deselecting, press Alt-D to copy the object and place it one grid cell to the right. Both actions should be done in one continuous motion. This way, you can repeat them using the last action repeat. The reason for this is that if you first copy the object, place it somewhere, and then move it to the desired position, the last action will only be considered the movement. By using the magical Shift-R combination, you'll move one object the same distance in the same direction. So, carefully press Alt-D, hold Ctrl, move the mouse to the desired position, and left-click to place the object in the new location. Now, the Shift-R key combination will duplicate the object with simultaneous translation. You need to duplicate the object 13 more times, leaving the corner free. Now, use the same trick, but this time with rotation. If you select a row of trees now and start rotating, they will rotate around the average point of the entire selected group. But we need to rotate them around the center of the scene. As it happens, our 3D cursor is resting there. So, we can switch the transformation pivot point to the 3D cursor. Now, let's select the entire row of trees. If you selected it along with the background, then deselect the background by holding Ctrl and drawing a rectangular selection over it. Alternatively, hold Shift and double-click the background. The first click will make the background an actively selected element, and the second click will exclude it from the selected group. Selecting groups of objects is an art that can be explored in a couple of lessons, but our focus here is primarily on programming, so we won't dwell on this topic. Now, you can try to rotate the row of trees. But first, copy it by pressing Alt-D, and immediately press R90 and enter. The row will rotate exactly 90 degrees, and you can repeat this action to more times using the same Shift-R combination. Now, let's select 4 trees on each side and delete them. Through these openings, enemies will enter the scene. Let's take a moment to pause. Why did we copy objects using Alt-D instead of the familiar Shift-D? Here's why. All of these objects are actually referencing the same mesh. You can verify this by going into Edit mode and changing the shape. By altering one selected object, you will change all the copies because they are one and the same object. This conserves computer resources as well as our time. Pay attention to a very important point that can add torment to your life. If you are going to use shape keys in an object that you are copying using Alt-D, then be sure to first create all the necessary shapes and then create copies of the object. If you first reproduce an object and then create shapes in one of the copies in the hope that all other objects will inherit it, then you will be disappointed and hurt. The game will stop launching. We'll have to roll back. And the final touch, we need to adjust the lighting. Add a sun to the scene and move it to the side. To see the result, switch to Render Preview mode. The position of the sun doesn't affect the lighting. What really matters is the angle of inclination. So, let's tilt the sun first along the x-axis, about 30 degrees, and then along the z-axis, about 30 degrees. Also increase the light strength to 3. Now, our scene has light and shadows from the objects. Beautiful. Take it step by step. That's enough for today. Goodbye.